You are about to witness one of the cleanest chess games played this year. Praggnanandhaa, India's prodigy, the pride of a generation, just unleashed a 99.1% accuracy performance at the Uzbek Cup 2025, and it was nothing short of a chess perfection. His opponent, Shamsuddin Vakidov, a strong grandmaster from Uzbekistan, and no easy win. But Pragg didn't just win, he crushed. It was round 2 of the tournament and Pragg came out swinging. Every move had purpose. Every plan was executed flawlessly. It looked like the board itself was doing exactly what he wanted. Like he could see 10 moves ahead at all times. And with this win, he's reached his peak rating ever and is now officially world number 6, just behind the world champion Gukesh. In this video, we are going to break down that incredible game from the opening spark to the final knockout. You'll see what 99.1% accuracy chess really looks like. So let's get into it. Okay, Pragg is playing with the white pieces, his opponent Shamsuddin Vakidov is playing with the black pieces. Pragg opened the game with 1 c4, the English opening. Pragg is a very flexible player, he likes to play the move 1 d4, 1 e4, 1 c4. He's like, okay, let me try 1 c4 today. Knight to f6, knight to c3, and now we have the move e5. The normal way, the most aggressive way to play against 1 c4, the English opening. We have the move g3 by Praggnanandhaa. The idea is to simply develop the bishop to g2. Bishop goes to b4. And now we have the move e4 by Pragg. A very interesting move already from the move number 4. After e4, it looks like black can simply capture the knight on c3. Because if white simply captures it back, capturing towards the center, white is simply losing the pawn on e4. But here white can simply play the move queen e2, and once you move the knight, white is happily going to capture the pawn on e5. And even if black plays queen e7, trading off the queens, you will notice that white is simply having the bishop pair advantage. And not only the bishop pair advantage, but having a complete control in the center after d4. White would be simply better. So going back, bishop cross e3 is already not the best way to continue the position. So his opponent played the move d6, which makes sense. He is kind of protecting the pawn and now he is threatening to capture the knight on c3. We have the move d3 by Pragg, simply defending the pawn on e4 with the pawn on d3. Knight goes to c6, and now we have the move h3 by Pragg. It's all part of his preparation. He's playing absolutely fast, taking no time on his clock. The idea of h3 is kind of very useful. He's taking away the square of g4 from the knight or the bishop that can potentially land there in the future. We have a6 by Shamsuddin, making just a square for the bishop to maybe go on a7 in the future, and also preparing to play the move b5. We have knight to e2. The question is, why the knight came on e2? Why not on f3? Because I personally love this move, and why you are also going to love this move. Why? Because we are going to see some crazy attack thanks to the knight on e2. And not only it just allows white to potentially attack with f4, but it also defends the knight with the knight from the e2 square. So we have the move b5, and now we have simply bishop to g2 by Pragg. By the way, b5 is a very strong move played by Vakidov, because if you try to capture the pawn on b5, we simply have a b5. You can't really capture the pawn on b5 because the knight is pinned on c3, and not only black, it helps black to open up the rook on the a file. It also helps black to gain some counterplay on the queen side. So that is the reason we simply have the move bishop to g2 by Pragg. Rook to b8 by Vakidov, putting the rook on the open b file, which is potentially going to get open. Castle up, and now we have the move bishop to c5. And now you guys must be wondering, what's the idea of bishop c5? Why he simply took back the bishop? Now, first of all, the bishop is absolutely doing nothing on b4, because if you take, white is simply going to recapture it with the knight. So that's why after bishop c5, you're kind of not allowing white to push his f pawn. And also at the same time, Vakidov wants to take on c4, and after d cross c4, you will see the rook on b8 is putting some pressure on the pawn on b2. So that's the reason we have the move rook to b1. Pragg simply wants to defend the pawn on b2, so now he can move the bishop from the c7 square. we have the move castle up, and now I want to play the move f4. How shall I do it? The pawn is pinned to the king. I'll just play king to h2. That's it. We have h6 by Wakidov, a good move. And now we have the move f4 by Pragg. Simply going all in. And after f4, you can see now there is going to be some real attack on the king side. We have the move b cross c4. Personally, when I was watching the game, I was also thinking of the same move. If Black tries to play the move b4, which for many newbies, many of the viewers who are watching are kind of noobs, so yeah. After b4, it's a very pleasant move. You are pushing the pawn, you're attacking the knight. But positionally speaking up, it's already a very bad move, because not only you kind of block your own queenside play, and now white is getting a free hand on the king side. White is simply going to play the move knight to d5 and just keep attacking on the king side. And thanks to the pawn on b4 that you have pushed it, now black is having absolutely zero counterplay on the queen side. And white is just having a free play on the king side, and that's it. That's 1-0. So that's why we have to move b cross c4, d cross c4, and now we have to move centralizing the knight, knight to d4, the best move. Pragg is like, okay, now let me push f5. Idea is g4, g5. That's it. And according to the engine is like, okay, the position is absolutely fine. Nothing is happening. The position is equal. But like if you're playing it on the board, you're already feeling the heat. g4, g5 is coming in. You have to do something about your king. We have to move a5 by Shamsuddin. A very good move actually. The best move available in the position. He's trying to push his pawn. He wants to put the bishop on a6, attack the pawn on c4. And try to basically generate some sort of counterplay on the queen side. Because Pragg is like simply generating all the counterplay on the king side. So he has to do something. g4, here we go. Bishop to a6, attacking the pawn. b3, defending the pawn, makes sense. And now we have the move c6 by Wakidov. Maybe the idea could be to play the move d5, striking in the center. Pragg is like, fine, knight to g3. My idea is I want to play g5. If you take, I'll take with the bishop. I want to put my knight on h5, as you can't really take it because the queen is hanging on d8. So we have the move knight to h7, which makes sense. You're kind of stopping white from playing the move g5. And if all those who are wondering what happens after d5, nothing is happening. White can simply take with the e pawn. Obviously, you can't take with the c pawn because the rook is hanging on f1. So you just take off with the c pawn, and now you can simply capture the pawn with the knight. You are just a pawn up, just having fun. That's it. So that's it. So we have knight h7. That makes sense. And now we have the move knight to h5. Pragg is like, okay, now let me jump with my knight. And also, maybe he's preparing f6, launching some devastating attack on the king side. Wakidov finally, as he is a human, decided to play the move g6, which was not the best. Though it's not losing, but it's not the best. Now, there are many moves that is possible in the position. Like, one of the best moves could be simply play king h8, just moving the king. And if white tries to push f6, black can go g5. And now what's the idea, you must be asking. The point here is, now the g8 square is kind of free for the rook. So after h4, rook g8, you will see now the rook is going on g6, attacking on the pawn on f6. The pawn is well defended on g5, and black is actually better in this position, which is kind of surprising. So going back, like f6 is a move which practically looks like one of the most common move in the eyes of amateur. But here, after h4, you are kind of trying to stop the inevitable. White is anyways going to play the move g5, and now g5 is even more powerful, as you have already committed the pawn on f6. So that's why f6 guys is not a good move. And now you can play the move a4, by the way. That's also a fine move in some sort of a variation, because after f6, g5, the same stuff, h4, you can take over here, knight goes to e6, and black is somehow fine. Going back, we have g6, bishop cross h6. Pragg is like, okay, you want to take my knight? Take it, I don't care. Shamsuddin is like, okay, I'll take it, but thanks for the knight. And that's actually a blunder. Like, you're giving up the pawn to capture the knight, And capturing the knight is a blunder. The best move in this position is to play queen h4. You move the knight, you lose the bishop. So you give up the rook. And you need to somehow survive this position. After knight g3, you need to survive this position. When you are exchanged down, you're facing some tremendous attack. And that's it. Makes sense. Capturing the knight makes sense. And now, there's only single move for Praggnanandhaa to keep his plus 1.9 advantage. You can try to pause the video and try to find it. I'm going to reveal it in 3, 2, 1. And here we go. g5. Shamsuddin would have been like, okay, g cross h5. And I'll just play king h8, rook g8, and black is better. Pragg is like, no, g5. I'm going to capture the h5 pawn with my queen. And that's exactly what happened. And now rook g8. And now, from here, the real game begins. g6. Many of the beginners would like to capture the pawn on f7, which is already a blunder after rook b7, because it helps black to get all his pieces into the game. So g6. You have to take, and now rook to b7. And after rook b7, basically, if you try to capture the knight, it's already a bad way to continue the position. Black is now having all his pieces onto the king side, and black is better. There's only single move which helps white to keep his advantage of plus nearly 3. You can try to pause the video and try to find it. I'm going to reveal it once again in 3, 2, 1. And here we go. Rook to f7. Wow. And that's the only way to play. For example, if you play something else like bishop h1, just a random move, like second best move maybe. Knight e6. And knight e6 is the critical move to continue the possession. Why? Because after rook f7, you can actually take on f7, because after takes, there is rook to g5, which is insane. Because thanks to the knight on e6, the f8 square is covered up. And after takes, if you take the queen, I'll just take it back with this knight, and thanks to the knight on e6, you can't make the queen, I can just take it. That's it. That's insane. That's why rook f7 is the winning move. And you have to take, you are not really having any option, or else you are simply getting checkmated. Takes, and now we have rook g7. Pragg is like, who needs the rook when you can get your own rook into the game? With the idea of simply making a queen. You have to stop it. Here we go. You can't take with the queen. Pragg will make a queen. You can't take it with the knight, because the knight is spin, and that's it. That's GG. So, king takes, the only way. And once again, the cleanest way possible, h4. I want to put my bishop on h3, and then rook g1, and that's GG. Bishop c8, bishop h3. We have a bishop trade. I don't really want to capture the bishop when I can give a check. The king is forced to go on f6, obviously, because if you go back, rook g8 check, and I win the queen, and that's GG. So, king f6, and now rook g8. And when I was watching, I was like, okay, I'll just capture the pawn. Where's the win? Once again, the only way. Queen h6 check. And that's like the king is only having one way to run away, and now we have the most obvious way. Rook g7. The queen is simply pinned to the king, and that's GG. Why? Because the whole point here is one piece is going to hang in the end of the day. For example, if you just try to go back with the bishop. Takes. And basically black is just having two minor pieces for the queen, and not only that, white is having a pass pawn on the side, on the king side. Shamsuddin is like, where did I play it wrong? That's GG. Game over. So he basically decided to resign the game on the move number 33 after rook g7. Pragg played a flawless chess, a clean chess, played with an accuracy of 99.1% accuracy, which is mind-blowing, which is shocking, which is insane. And I personally believe many of the viewers watching, you can actually use the same opening that Pragg played. The opening he played helps you to attack your opponent's king, which is amazing. I believe you guys can also do the same thing. It's the same opening. You just need to prepare a bit. That's it. So yeah, this was it. I hope that you enjoyed the game. If you did, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm definitely going to cover more of such interesting games from the Uzbek Cup 2025, where many top players, Praggnanandhaa, Arjun Erigesi, Nepomniachtchi, Richard Rapport, Northern Abdusattarov, and many more top players are playing the tournament. So I hope that you have enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.